I'm done. It took me at least 2 hours to do this.
I've been done for a while because I just Googled Wikipedia.
Okay, listen, I went to the actual bookstore and bought these books.
Becky, where's Bobby?
I don't know. Bobby was supposed to be looking up stuff about HP Lovecraft.
Where's Bobby?
Wait, what? Nope, that doesn't sound like... Nope, that definitely doesn't... Why does that sound like an anime girl?
Okay. What if Bobby's being killed?
Okay, just go look. Just go look.
No, you go look.
No, you go look.
You go look.
Rock, paper, scissors. Okay, you go look. Go.
Okay. Bobby?
It's Cthulhu. I swear to God, I'm just doing this for research.
Wait, what?
It's wholesome. It's
Scoot
wholesome.
over, Bobby. Scoot over. I want to watch.
You guys are gross. Jesus is judging you.
Hail Satan.
Oh, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Free Rotation podcast. That's me being cosmically horrifying. Did you like that?
So, Bobby, how are you?
I'm joined by my peeps. Bobby, hi. Say hi.
Hi.
And
I'm
what?
tired.
Oh, Jesus, that's because you were drunk all night.
So?
And I'm also joined by Miss Angela, our executive producer / tentacle expert.
That makes me sound so freaky, but it is true. It's not wrong.
Freaky, yet not wrong.
She's waiting on your... Look at her waiting. She looked at Becky and twitched her head like, what about me?
And you can also say hi to Kuchiki because she's trying to make Angie's allergies act up real bad today.
She succeeded, yeah.
If you ever notice, a side note, that Angie sounds kind of snotty every time we record, it's not because she's sick every time we record. It's because she decides to pet a cat she's allergic to and then start to record.
But it's wholesome.
It is wholesome and loving, but it's like at this point, I don't know if anybody actually knows what Angie sounds like when she's not snotty.
I don't think so.
Speaking of updates, Angie actually posted a picture of herself on social media. I was shook.
did.
I was like, holy fuck,
I
this
did.
never happens.
Wasn't it sexy?
That's the utter sex appeal.
Corn dog and...
You were just making your,
It's the face I make when a tentacle goes in my butt.
I wish that could be like just clipped and just put everywhere from now on. That's what we're gonna. But speaking of tentacle porn, we're not talking about that. We're talking
Damn
about
it.
HP Lovecraft because it's that time of the year again.
I researched the wrong stuff.
It's
You
never
didn't-
wrong. It's
okay, you
always
didn't-
right.
Thank you, Bobby.
You didn't do research. It's literally like a file on your computer.
So?
Several files, Becky. I've got an external hard drive full.
I like how we are like a super professional podcast, but as soon as we start talking about elder gods, the first thing we think of is tentacle porn.
Because we were professional, but we're also inner 5-year-olds.
We
Professional
also
butts.
accept that
Professional butts.
Cthulhu's going to fuck us all one day. Simultaneously. in one...
That's a great segue into this episode. Good job, Angie. I'm so proud of you. The snot is definitely helping you today.
The snot is strong in this one.
That's so gross.
Well, if you don't know who H.P. Lovecraft is, you're living under a rock, like I say a lot of times. H.P. Lovecraft is probably one of the most prolific 20th century, I almost said 21st century. That would be really weird if that was true. 20th century writers to come out for horror and sci-fi. But let's get a little bit of background about him before we really delve into the stuff we want to talk about, which is tentacles. Howard Phillips Lovecraft, which, by the way, the fact that his name was Lovecraft, he should have always been a horror writer regardless.
Yeah.
There was
or porn. Erotica.
Yeah, that makes sense. That does.
And back to tentacles. Well, Mr. Lovecraft was born on August 20th, 1890, and he's commonly regarded as one of the most influential American horror writers of all time, and is frequently compared to Edgar Allan Poe, which surprisingly was also one of his big influences at the time. He lived primarily in Providence, Rhode Island, and helped invent the genre of cosmic horror. Horror?
We're going to horror.
Horror, which is the idea that the universe is an alien and dangerous place, incomprehensible to most sane people. His stories are often featured as protagonists who encounter horrible beings from outside our world, resulting in horror, insanity, and death.
And sex.
I mean, to be fair, every story that you read, there's no happy ending to
This
them.
sounds like us on a daily basis.
But what was interesting is that many of Lovecraft's stories are subjects to some of his own nightmares, and his interests in horror were inspired by his grandfather's telling of gothic horror stories. Woo!
Ookie spookies.
But Like many literary artists, Lovecraft was virtually unknown during his time and only published in pulp magazines, which, like Edgar Allan Poe, it's kind of interesting how it kind of follows like the parallel of Edgar Allan Poe, is that he was very poor. There was some talk about mental illness in his family, and that he never saw his fame ever come to light until after he had died.
Like Picasso.
Yeah. He did die in poverty from cancer at 46. And is now one of the most prolific writers in the 20th century. I keep trying to say 21st century, but in an ironic turn of events. And while Lovecraft had hated playing games while he was alive, one of the biggest driving factors for his influence in modern society are the games that have come about, including Call of Cthulhu, which is a tabletop RPG if you've never played it, Arkham Horror, and Mansions of Madness, which honestly, I didn't know a lot about Elder Gods or anything like that until we played a lot of those games. Or Angie's
Elder Sign.
I was about to say, which is Angie's favorite is Elder Sign. One of the best-selling games recently was Mountains of Madness, which was inspired by the Lovecraft story At the Mountains of Madness, which focuses on scientific exploration in Antarctica and the horrors that are uncovered. Now, I'll be honest with you, this is like one of the games I had been trying to look for because we were doing a spoopy game night on Friday. It's like one of those things where you see it 8,000 times, and then suddenly you go look for it, you can't find it anywhere.
It's like trying to find that one Lego piece.
But it was like I didn't really know a lot about HP Lovecraft until the game started coming out, the stuff we started playing, especially Elder Sign. So even though he hated games and stuff like that, I mean, it kind of like perpetuated him in gaming
But
nurture.
like back in his time, there probably weren't games like this.
No.
Yeah.
It was probably all some kind of
Dice cards.
flapper bullshit.
Hey, flappers are hot.
Yeah, no, that's true. But it would probably like although I have read about some really weird games they had at the time. I mean, Ghosts in the Graveyard did come from that time period.
Wait, what game?
Ghosts in the Graveyard.
What's that?
It's basically tag at night in the graveyard, but hide and seek tag in the graveyard.
That sounds like fun.
That's fucking terrifying.
But the ghosts in the graveyard can get the it.
Oh,
So if they
Yeah.
sneak up and get you first, then you become the ghost in the graveyard.
well, that's terrifying.
You can't
Yeah.
participate. You're like,
Ooh, I'm a dead person.
Ghost in the Graveyard is a really scary game when you think about it. It's dark.
Why the fuck would I ever want to play in a graveyard, much less be in one? I'm such a vagina.
Hey, excuse you, vaginas.
I love vaginas, don't get me wrong, but I am very sensitive, so I'm a vagina.
Okay. Well, speaking of vaginas, talking about big influences. Listen, my segue game was never good to begin with. We've already set low standards in this.
Talking about big labias.
Talking about big influences, Stephen King has credited Lovecraft for being an influence in his
You just called
novels.
Stephen King a pussy.
I
It's on. Your segues are bad. You're going to get us killed.
No, Stephen King is awesome. I just have bad segue game. I just picture myself on a Segway, but whatever.
I did too.
Dabbing.
No hands,
No.
Mom. Check it out.
No, Cthulhu.
Cthulhu Christ.
Yeah.
Especially seen in his stories that tend to take place in the Northeast. Hello, Rhode Island. And then Maine is a lot of
Maine,
the places where Stephen King's stories take place.
That's where he lives, but
Well, I mean, it's true, but we live in Georgia. That doesn't necessarily mean we're going to write about Georgia.
we pretty much always have.
I don't need you to call me out on this episode, ma'am. I
Oh,
think you can
Rachel's.
just, roll with me a little bit.
Rock with it.
Exactly.
Roll with it.
But Stephen King does do a lot of cosmic horror as well, such as It and The Outsider. On the other side of the planet, Junji Ito, who is one of the best horror manga writers of all time, created Uzumaki and has stated that the gradual development of the spiral curse that was patterned on Lovecraft's storytelling and that Lovecraft's expressionism with regard to atmosphere greatly inspires my creative impulse. Now, let me tell you, Junji Ito has probably some of the scariest stories that I've ever read. And Uzumaki, to me, is probably scarier than some of the Lovecraft stories because it's just a big old spiral that, curses you, if
Did
anything.
he write another?
He's written so much.
I don't think he wrote another, but another was inspired by Junji Ito.
Oh, I haven't. Oh, sorry. You're talking about another, the anime. I was thinking of, you're using it as, did he write another blank
Oh.
thing?
Oh, yeah.
I've not watched another. I heard it's super spooky, though.
Oh, Bobby, I have the book too if you'd like to read it, if you have a preference.
It started out as a book first, and then it became the anime, and then it became the manga.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's talk about some of the themes that are seen in Lovecraft's storytelling. Forbidden knowledge, which this could be I think Kingdom of the Crystal Skull every time I think of forbidden knowledge, because that was like the first time I'd ever seen anything with that idea. So Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is your set way
it
here.
also goes back to one of our horror themes from last week, that when you find out that things like this exist, how do you go back to a normal existence? It'll drive you crazy knowing, like, the other, I think of, like, CERN.
Well,
open portals.
And that's funny you say that, because the characters in HP Lovecraft are driven by curiosity or scientific endeavor that discover such knowledge either by filling the seeker with regret for what they have learned, destroying them psychologically, or completely destroying the person who holds the knowledge. I mean, think about it. If you found out that there were, like, these elder gods that existed millions of years ago, and there's nothing that there's nobody who understands that knowledge, but you do, and you know that there are others who know
and
about it.
And they think you're crazy, and maybe you are. So then you start debating, am I crazy? Am I insane? Or is this still true? This also forbidden knowledge goes back to the Diablo series, especially the first one where he kills Diablo and you become the Dark Wanderer. And you literally shove the shit in your forehead, and it destroys you physically, psychologically, because you have this knowledge and this power.
But there's also non-human influences on humanity. And that's seen with many of the stories focusing on human cults following a deity such as Cthulhu.
And these cults are usually just mindless. Like, they have lost all willpower or freely given it up.
That's my biggest fear, is like stumbling upon a cult, like doing a ritual in the woods, and then they find out who I am, start stalking me. That's my biggest fear.
I've stumbled across a cult in the woods.
Fuck that shit.
Like, literally, I did. When I ran away from a group home when I was a kid, like, we were chased by Satanists in the woods. Like, literally, swear to God.
We should do an episode about gang stalking. It's a super fascinating phenomenon, but I'll talk about it later. It's
what is happening in the area right now?
Gang stalking?
Yeah, you see on Chatty Women and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing. We'll talk about it sometime. It's good shit.
Well, that's great. Now I'm really freaked out. At least I could pretend Cthulhu didn't exist, but now...
Oh, he's there in the canal in Savannah.
Oh, yeah. Angie's big thing in Savannah is that she's pretty sure an elder god exists in the Savannah River.
But here's the thing. I'm not the only one. Like, I hadn't heard or read anything about it before. And then I told Becky, I'm like, I really feel like something is asleep in this water here. Like, it has that heavy feeling. And then when I got back to work and I was talking about being in Savannah, someone said that exact same words to me.
Well, Savannah's technically on a ley line, right? Or at least part of it, because it's so fucking spoopy. Yeah.
And it's on like 1,700 graveyards built on top of each other. I mean, that's feeding something. That much shit doesn't happen in one place without something like being a catalyst.
Yes. Well, there's also a nuclear plant right there too. And I think that they said there is a atom bomb that's outside of the Savannah River that is like dormant, but they could never get it because of the fear I think it might be a nuclear bomb actually.
God damn it.
That would accidentally detonate. So there is like weird shit in that river that, could attribute to anything that could exist. Like, I'm thinking Godzilla when I think this.
Like just a kaiju popping up.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I think that one day we're just going to see tentacles just rise up.
I don't need any more anxiety. Now it's just like,
fuck. What would you do, Bobby, if you looked out in the distance? I've always asked Angie this. Like, what was that magic card that Progenitus? Where all you just see in the clouds are this monstrous like entity that's there?
I don't know.
And it's literally like hundreds of miles away, and it looks like it's right there.
Yeah.
The only saving grace about something that big is it's going to move so much slower than us.
Right.
I mean, it's going to eat up huge strides, but when something's that big, we become the ants, and you know how fast ants are.
Yeah.
Like, you can get them, but...
Well, it's just a terrifying thought. Like, you just look out one day, eating your sandwich at Nuke's or something. You just went shopping over at Dillard's, and you look out and like, oh, there's Cthulhu.
But if we get those, we get Gundams.
Oh, that's true.
I'm pretty sure they already have those, too.
And I would fucking... That's my dream.
A Gundam?
To be a Gundam pilot. I want to be Amuro Ray. Please, I grew up on that shit.
They say that they decreased funding for the future combat systems by the government. I don't think so.
That's because they created everything and they don't need anything
There's
else
the only
for right now.
That I mean, and toilet seats don't cost $10,000.
I don't know. Gold-plated self-heating ones probably do. But
True.
Yeah.
Another big theme that is seen in Lovecraft is fate, which is often in Lovecraftian stories, the protagonist is not in control of his or her own destiny, which is mostly him most of the time, and cannot change his course. The subjects are generally subject to a compulsive influence that is malevolent.
And fate really is a running theme, especially through religion. You don't control your own destiny or fate.
Well, I think Lovecraft, what he's done really well is that in his stories, it doesn't feel like that there is a chance for survival. It's like you're already preset, predetermined what's going to happen to you.
And the struggle is the protagonist is struggling against their fate, but in the end, all of their actions have actually led to what they were trying to prevent.
It's like it's a very helpless feeling.
It's the same with the Dark Tower series at the very end. Like, to me, this is where you really see HP Lovecraft's influence on Stephen King. It's the very end of the Dark Tower series. Spoiler alerts. If you don't want to hear the end, don't listen. But Roland gets to the very end of the tower. He sounded the horn. He goes up. He's going to take the tower. And then all he sees is where he's been there thousands of times, and he has done the exact same things every single time he's been through this reality.
Right.
And, of course, he has to start it over because he let the boy die. He has let this kid die in across thousands of existences.
But this time he has the horn, so it might be different.
This time he has the horn.
It might be different.
So
was it like in like the Avengers, Doctor Strange is like there's 14 million realities and only one do you win?
Yeah.
No, only one do you stand a chance.
Oh, yeah. So the idea that we're just predetermined to do certain things regardless of whether we want to do it or not, I think that's what makes it so horrifying. It's not just the fact that they're elder gods that are walking around and are influencing our minds. It's the fact that there's nothing we can do about it to stop it.
And I think that H.P. Lovecraft was way ahead of his time because right now one of the prevailing theories is that we live, what are the two main scientists, Neil deGrasse Tyson and Carl Sagan?
Yeah.
They both say that it is over 100% certainty that we are living in a computer simulation.
Jesus.
Where we are just fated to do the same shit over and over. And you remember the Black Mirror episode?
Yeah.
With the dating service? And they put them together and they matched 3 out of 3 times. They've chosen to break the system together. So it's like he wasn't familiar with how technology was going to advance, but some part of him
understood
that. Like, if you look at life too hard, sometimes you're like, this is so ridiculous. It has to be fake.
Well, and you think about it, like computer programming, you are only programmed in those, like any sort of program in that computer is only works to what you've programmed it to do.
Well, scientists say that in our very genetic makeup and DNA, we're programmed how we're going to react, even down to our political standpoints. And you truly can't change the way somebody thinks because they are programmed to believe that way.
Well, hell, like they talk about, there was a show a few years ago called Afraid of the Dark. It's not Are You Afraid of the Dark by Nickelodeon, which the second episode of that series came out, the new one. So that was interesting. But what it talked about is like why humans are so scared of the dark in general. And we are genetically predisposed to be scared of it based on what our ancestors went through.
And fire, too.
And fire. It's just the idea that what we've already lived through genetically through our ancestors has caused us to already have that predisposition to hate the dark, hate fire, hate all that. So if you think about it, if we're all predisposed to do something anyways, can you say, even though I don't necessarily agree that fate is a thing that we only are predetermined for, but that's a good argument for why you think that fate predetermines everything that goes on for you.
Well, that's why the Sith was so serious, because those people, like Anakin, went against his predisposition to be a Jedi.
Yeah.
He literally had to make the choice to kill innocent people, and you can see how hard it hurt him, because like when you think about your politics, like Bobby, would anything in the world ever be able to predispose you to being a Trump supporter?
No.
I mean, me either. But there are people who support him that there's nothing in the world that would change their mind. You can see. Nothing will change their minds.
Right.
Like, we are who we are, so that's why arguing politics and religions is pointless, because we're never going to change our minds.
Unless they find out about Cthulhu and their mind is opened up and they drive themselves crazy.
And that's what drives them insane. Well, think about how there's so many true reports of alien encounters by the government, by,
Blink 182.
Okay, I don't know what you're referencing.
You didn't see the thing where Blink 182 released, like, footage at a concert where they had seen alien spacecraft going around?
Oh, see? That's crazy.
And then, like, the government was like, they were never supposed to release this.
Oh, wow.
Well, and then people still see it and just their minds refuse to accept it because it would have to change the way they see the world. So, really, the saying, get woke, was about people who could see the world the way it is and accept it. So, you see a lot of people misuse that now, get woke. Trump 2020. But it's like, you were really misusing that. And then sometimes I wonder if maybe they are the woke ones. Like,
because their insanity has driven them to be this way.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is actually a cultist who worships Cthulhu. Surprise, motherfuckers!
Because when you think about it, you realize you are so set in your ways. Maybe you're still the sleeping one.
Well, I feel really depressed now.
Speaking of Donald Trump, let's talk about some stories.
Oh my God, you have the worst segues too.
Okay,
No, I don't.
Okay, I can do a better segue. So Trump was on the news at 9 a.m. with a story, and it sounded kind of Cthulhu-esque, Becky. Let's talk about some actual Cthulhu stories.
There you go.
I
Way
almost
better.
choked on my coffee because that was hilarious. Anyways, so here are some famous stories, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard about these stories, but if you haven't, these are some that you need to check out because they're really good. The first, of course, is the predecessor to all Cthulhu stories, The Call of Cthulhu. It was inspired by the Tennyson poem, The Kraken.
Kraken.
You know what? It is funny. I hate to randomly go off on
Tennyson
this.
pronounced it Kraken.
It is pronounced Kraken because think about it. You can't say awaken the Kraken. It's awaken the Kraken. So it has to be...
Oh, we can go a whack in the Kraken. Bobby does it every night.
And I can't say that I did not come up with that. That was day 9. He was talking about people making fun of him for saying Kraken. He's like, you don't awaken a Kraken. You awaken a Kraken. So anyways, but I like to say Kraken because it sounds scarier than Kraken. Kraken just sounds like something you take as a supplement every morning before you go to work.
Kraken sounds terrifying.
I keep thinking Kraken of like a little vitamin B pill. Like, I took it. Now I'm going to be real good this morning.
I got a crake in my neck.
Somewhere
I got a Kraken.
Cthulhu just stirred in his slumber like, did somebody just say I was a B12 pill?
Fuck up. Anyways, The Call of Cthulhu focuses on the story's narrator, Francis Whalen Thurston.
Thurston, bring me my coffee.
Which, did you ever finish the video game? I was having a debate with Marco about this, that you never finished
No, I
it.
didn't. I got scared and stopped playing it.
Okay. He recounts different notes left behind by his great uncle, who is a professor of Semitic language at Brown University in Rhode Island, that died after being jostled by a sailor. Now, okay. Jostled
He bumped me.
I know. I was like, but then I think it's a little bit more in depth than that, but I'm going to keep the summary the way it is. But
maybe he got jostled overboard.
that's what I think it is. I think he got
That's still freaking hilarious.
Oh.
intentionally knocked.
I thought he got
Yeah,
fucked in the
jostled
ass
me.
and it fissured and he bled out to death.
My little butthole. Anyways.
Oh, that's beginning the tentacle porn.
Yeah.
I always go back to tentacle porn. A lot of Lovecraft stories tend to take place in Northeast America, just like this story. Thurston pieces together several disparate events and documents that lead to him to discover the depths and wits of a little-known cult. He soon realizes the horrifying truth about a sunken island in the Pacific and its ancient otherworldly inhabitant with mind-shattering consequences. Basically, that Cthulhu is a mountainous creature that drives people insane as it accidentally is released from its portal, and now that he is aware of its existence, he is now in danger.
From the cult.
From the cult. So it's like as soon as he knew, it's like the eye of Sauron. When it turns to you, it just knows.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like, it's a pretty good story. I definitely think you should check it out.
I hope he doesn't know my internet history.
Oh, he does.
You think Cthulhu's just ashamed of us at this point? He's like,
Probably.
you know what? We'll just wait another century or
we've
so.
put so many chemicals in our body. Cthulhu isn't even hungry anymore.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to eat
We're
us.
processed food.
We're like McDonald's at this point.
Oh my god.
We're McDonald's.
yeah, we're processed.
We're processed food.
I feel like I stay woke, girl. Anyways.
Hashtag.
Hashtag stay woke, girl. Trump, not 2020. Anyways. The Shadow over Innsmouth is another one, and it's about a lone student who visits a strange...
This is one of my favorites.
Is it? Yeah. A strange seaside town and investigates the origin of strange gold artifacts and encounters hostile townspeople bearing the Innsmouth look, which is an apparent genetic mutation that makes them seem fish-like. He soon discovers that the atrocities of a previous generation are now having horrible consequences, not just on the town, but on his own life. Stuart Gordon's 2001 film Dagon was based on this tale. And by the way, I want to point out the weird part of the story is where people got to breed with the fish-looking group called the Deep Ones, which I have a PTSD when it comes to stuff like this from Dragon Age, where brood mothers were created by Darkspawn in the Deep Roads from Dragon Age. So it's Deep Ones, Deep Roads, brood mothers. Hell no!
That was probably one of the scariest things in a video game was walking through the deep roads and hearing that chant
Yeah.
about how it's dwarven women, right?
Yeah,
How
dwarven.
they're-
Or no, any women that were caught by Darkspawn.
But usually it's a dwarven woman who's chanting, and she's telling how she was taken, raped, vomited in her mouth, horribly tortured and abused, became pregnant with them until she became a brood mother. She's resisted becoming a brood mother at that point.
Yeah.
But then as you find her, she just burst into brood mother stature.
That sounds like one of my ex-girlfriends.
Oh.
I like that segue, Bobby. That's really good. But yeah, I don't.
Get back on the motorcycle. Come back this way.
I don't know if I would. This is definitely one that I probably would skip though, because the idea of being bred with something that it's just kind of creepy. It's scary. It's a scary story.
Well, because there's this idea that mermaids, merfolk do exist, and they're denizens of Cthulhu. Like when people talk about seeing mermaids come up on the beaches, they're like sending the infantry ahead of the huge,
Yeah, and they ain't good
tanks.
looking either. They ain't no Ariel.
No,
from fucking
if
Little
you ever
Mermaid.
watched Harry Potter,
No,
that was
they're
a lie.
absolutely vicious. Yeah, I don't know how merfolks, they're Disneyfied, because in all the ancient stories, merfolk were horrifying creatures.
Ursula knew what she was doing.
See?
Anyways, the Dunwich Horror.
Horror.
On a funny note, we were at this bookstore when we were coming back from a wedding yesterday, and Angie was looking at erotica, and I'm like, I'm going to go look for horror. Not whores, but horror.
Yeah. She was like, you keep looking for your horrors, and I'll go look for horror. And there was a guy same size, and he was like, but he was in the same erotica aisle, dude. Don't give me the fuzzy eye. We are in the same aisle looking for the same shit.
Anyways.
Lesbians.
Okay, for the Dunwich Horror, a student of the occult seeks out the Necronomicon, Angie, not you, to open the gates between our world and one that is unseen. Later, we discover that he is even more dangerous and considerably more monstrous brother is locked away in the attack who escapes his bonds to rampage across the land. It falls to a group led by the noble Dr. Armitage to put an end to this destruction. The story was also adapted into the 1970 film, directed by Roger Corman and starring Dean Stockwell and Sandra Dee.
God bless Corman. He makes
So
all
does-
the good schlock.
Dr. Armitage sound familiar? Because he was in another game we've talked about.
Which one?
It's up to you to figure it out.
Why don't you just tell me?
An ARG.
Oh, is it? Alternate reality?
Yeah.
Game.
Dr. Armitage was one of the doctors who was trying to stop something terrible from happening in that game as well.
Doki Doki Literature Club.
No, I said it was an ARG. I can't remember which one.
Oh, that's why he's like, I'll let you figure it out.
Why don't you name it? I name it. Yes, that one. I could have said
Yes.
freaking Skyrim or something.
Except that's not ARG, Becky.
You don't know my life.
Yes, I do.
Sometimes I just want to be a Dothraki and yell at dragons. That's not what happens.
Nope,
I
nope.
did not play Skyrim. I don't know what it
And
is.
Dothraki's from Game of Thrones, you pleb.
Excuse me. It's also from A Song of Ice and Fire, which is the book which Game of Thrones is based on, sir.
Wow,
Pleb.
why are we so violent, y'all?
Because I have to pee.
Okay, but Cthulhu would not approve.
All right. So the next story, or the last story I will be covering, is Dreams in the Witch House, which is a little different than a lot of the stories we've covered regarding Cthulhu and the cultists and stuff like that. Walter Gilman, a student of math and folklore at Miskatonic University, moves into an old house that is rumored to be haunted by the ghost of a witch named Kezia Mason. He soon has strange dreams involving a strange violet light and the witch and her familiar, a rat-like creature with a human face and hands, named Brown Jenkins. Hijinks ensue, but not really. This is a dark story that involves travels through the fourth dimension via advanced mathematics instead of witchcraft, the sacrifice of a small child, and the ultimate damnation of those who seek knowledge that man was not meant to know.
God damn.
So if you want to check out something that's a little outside of the Cthulhu mythos, that's a pretty good story to check out. Bob's?
Now we're
Now
talking.
throwing it over to you, Bob's.
Yes.
Back to you, Bobby.
Welcome to your new programming about Lovecraftian films. The first film we're talking about is The Thing. God, I can't do that voice. It's The Thing.
I was falling asleep. What?
Yeah, I'm boring. Anyway.
No, I was saying because that voice was like NPR, and NPR puts me to sleep.
I love NPR. Anyway, the first Lovecraftian-influenced film was The Thing. It tells the story of a group of American researchers in Antarctica who encounter the eponymous Thing, a parasitic extraterrestrial life form that assimilates and then imitates other organisms. The original Thing by John Carpenter is not specifically based on a Lovecraft story, but it indeed drew inspiration from it. Mm-hmm. Lovecraft would often not describe as sinister entities, and choosing instead to simply say the indescribable horror and allow the reader to come up with their own visuals. The inability of humans to comprehend the physical form of these creatures is integral to Lovecraft's cosmic fear. Carpenter continues this, not by hiding the monster from us, but by showing it to us in full light, because even though we're looking at it, it's still mostly indescribable.
I mean, to be fair, it is called The Thing. It doesn't even have a name. It's just The Thing.
Well, because fear could be inspired by something you see, but fear lives in your psychology.
Mm-hmm.
What you're afraid of is faded.
One character perfectly exemplifies of what most Lovecraft protagonists represent, and that's Blair, played by Wilford Brimley. He goes insane and ends up becoming the villain, as so many Lovecraft stories reveal in their final paragraphs.
Yeah, there's never a real good guy in these stories.
Mm-hmm.
No, in their efforts to be the good guy and to fix stuff, they just become the bad guy.
Oh my
Like,
God.
it's inevitable.
Bobby, you didn't tag your spoilers in a movie that's from like 37 years ago.
Yeah, they get the fuck over it. Anyway. Our next film, In the Mouth of Madness. This is actually one of my favorite films. I love this movie.
Really?
It's really good.
Okay.
An insurance investigator begins to discover that the impact of a horror writer's books have on his fans is more than inspirational. It contains many references to H.P. Lovecraft stories. For example, the name of the hotel and hotel's owner, Pickman, is a reference to the short story The Pickman's Motel. And it references to the old ones by Sutter Kane, along with certain representations of monsters printed on his books and are latter brought to life, are allusions to the Cthulhu mythos, a series of stories written by H.P. Lovecraft. Although Sutter Kane might appear to be a representation of Stephen King, he is likely more based on H.P. Lovecraft, and Hobbs End is based on Lovecraft's Arkham rather than Stephen King's Castle Rock. Also, the title of the movie references At the Mountains of Madness, yet another work from Lovecraft's.
Which I thought the thing also referenced Mountains of Madness in the fact that it's at Antarctica and they discover
Right.
it, which is at the Mountains of Madness storyline.
Which, if you ever, I'm just going to throw this out there one more time. If anybody knows where to buy At the Mountains of Madness, not on Amazon, I would like to play this game because you're climbing a mountain and going crazy.
Sounds good to me.
Ooh.
Woo!
Sounds safe.
Yeah.
Sounds very
Sounds
safe.
like some elder
Let's all
sign.
just belay together so that when one falls, we all do.
Exactly.
Yes. Our third film, Annihilation, came out in
Dun,
2017.
dun, dun.
In H.P. Lovecraft's popular short story, The Color Out of Space, a strange alien meteorite affects a farm near the coast with color, indescribable gobbles of color that taints and alters everything around the crash site. In Alex Garland's Annihilation, the meteor crash near the coast unleashes the Shimmer, an indescribable dome of color that has irrevocably changed everything inside.
Or iridescent dome of color, whatever you meant, Bobby.
Is iridescent? Sure. I'm just trying to use $5 words. Sounds smart.
And you know what about this one right here? When you think about Into the Tall Grass, it sounds Stephen King's new.
I didn't like the movie.
Yeah, but
I
think
know.
about what you just read here. That sounds a lot like this H.P. Lovecraft story.
That big old
Yeah.
rock. Yep. That
Definitely
fucking
inspired.
rock.
God, that rock was terrifying.
I think Stephen King likes anything that involves aliens. Period. The end. I'm just kidding. I don't know. It just.
Stephen King is an alien.
Oh.
He's warning us about his people.
Plot twist.
Let me tell you though, H.P. Lovecraft, he's a scary dude. He did a good job writing these stories. It sucks that he didn't really get to see what the fruits of his labors were.
Also, he was a hardcore racist.
Yeah. But anybody in the 40s like that, that was pretty normal.
Yeah.
But it's funny listening to people talk about him because he wasn't really a nice guy either.
No, he was a
he was just
prick.
kind of a real prick.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the fact that he's like this icon of, horror at this point, it's really good. But, he did inspire a lot of things that we see in our time today, Stephen King being one of them. Thank
He
goodness.
would probably hate what his works has inspired.
Oh my God.
Because
He'd
his
be
whole
so
thing was
fucking
like,
mad.
leave shit alone you don't know about. Meh, 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 meh.
He'd be so fucking
Full
mad right now.
schools at 7 years ago. I know that has nothing to do with him.
Wow, Becky.
Wow. Are you a timist?
I am.
Becky is Abraham Lincoln.
I tried. Do you not see my
That's
side?
where you got the hat from.
I love this hat. It's
You
very
wear it
comfortable.
every time
Can I
we
pee in
record.
it, please?
All right. Well, yeah, that's all of my notes. Do you have
Okay.
anything you want to add, Ange?
Well, here's the thing. Even in the Bible, it mentions the Leviathan, which is a Cthulhu type creature. So you know how the Bible is always like doom and gloom, destruction, end of the world's going to come in a rain of fire. But actually, in this one verse, it says the end of the world comes about when Cthulhu rises out of the depths of space and eats us.
Yeah, fair.
He's a world eater.
He's a world eater. And it literally says the world is going to be absorbed. So when you think about all the different ways the Bible contradicts itself, I don't know. That one rings the most true with me.
The Bible. No, not the Bible. Cthulhu is Galactus.
Oh, that's true.
My goodness.
I wouldn't be surprised if there is something that exists like that, though. I can't imagine that. It would be interesting to see if H.P. Lovecraft, he just was like, hey, it'd be cool, a tentacle monster that can kill you. Or if he, in his dreams, have seen these, huge, overbearing creatures that are going to come and kill us all. But that's what's scary. And you know what? I like it. I like the idea of this story. It's just helplessness. It's just absolute helplessness.
And the thing is, when Cthulhu awakens, he doesn't know we're here. We are so small and beneath him. He just wakes up and we die. That's the story.
I'm just going to keep pouring NyQuil down his throat, and we'll be fine.
I mean, we all like to think we're so important on a cosmic scale, and even the end of times revolves around us because we're so horrible. But all Cthulhu has to do is wake up, and that's the end of us.
Well, I hope you all are going to be depressed at the end of this episode. Congratulations, we've done our job.
Cthulhu, it is depressing.
Happy
it's
Halloween.
Very depressing.
Becky, what's a way they can wake up and listen to us?
You can wake up and listen to us
On Spotify.
You can check us out on Facebook at The TheFreeRotation Podcast. You can check us out on Twitter at TheFreeRotation. We're also on Instagram at TheFreeRotation Podcast. And you can check us out on YouTube and Twitch at TheFreeRotation. We are also affiliates of Weeby Geeks. Check out all the great podcasts over there. I'm sure there'll be a lot of spoopy Halloween episodes coming out this week because, it's Halloween. Ooh,
Don't we have our own website?
We do. TheFreeRotation.com. Yay! Did I miss anything?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Mm.
Oh.
We're going to live stream our ghost adventures.
Can we call it it's not okay, we don't call it Ghost Adventures, but something
I didn't mean to make fun of that, but it is our ghost adventures.
I'm trying to think scuffed hunting.
Our scuffed ghost
Scufferys. Our ghost scufferys.
I like the ghost scufferys. That's pretty good.
Ghost scufferys.
Because as soon as we're going to start streaming it, we're going to lose Wi-Fi. One of us is going to get scared, and we're going to run out and go eat pizza somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe someone's want to eat pussy instead of pizza, Becky.
Yeah, Becky.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. Bye.